Hey folks, welcome to Profiling Evil with Mike King and Chris McDonough. We just wrapped up the first piece of testimony with the detective from Rexburg Police Department in the Chad Daybell case. Chris, what did you think real quickly?
You know, Mike, I think one of the most interesting pieces of nuggets that came out of that is the search warrants that were dropped by Chandler PD to do the pings, the photographs that came out of the Yellowstone. That was interesting stuff. Mm-hmm.
The PD's taken some pretty hard hits, haven't they? And yet this was what we've been saying all along: is just hang on, folks. There's some good stuff coming down the pike, and I think you're right. That proved it. You know, this is probably the best time for us to hurry and wrap up our discussion on Cox and Vallow and the shooting of Charles Vallow. We had just walked through the house, but I thought maybe what I could do is play this video and catch us up to the point that we just ended as kind of a recap, but to help bring people up to speed. So I'm going to just let you kind of narrative your way through, and I'll probably jump in as we're talking. I'm not going to stop, but let's just kind of bounce through what's happening here.
Okay.
The officer walking through the house.
Yep. This is the first room. Obviously, we figured out. You know, everybody knows. Look at how the kids are living. And then he keeps moving. He gets into the Charles's room or Alex's room and sees the clothing at the bottom. Sees the gun at the top. Lockbox, guns laying in that awkward position that you pointed out, Mike.
Yeah, folks, go back to our earlier discussion because we really dive into detail here. And then of course, we talk about the fact of Charles wearing shoes, which answered a really big question. And then, of course, seeing Alex's shoes, we believe anyway, they're Alex's shoes in the entryway. But now we're heading down the hallway and looking into Lori's bedroom. And what was so significant here, Chris?
Yeah, she's just very organized in this bedroom. And then you contrast that with how the kids are living. You know, and one other interesting thing is the officer noted in today's testimony that we just heard, JJ suitcase with his name on it. So is that suitcase is open, but is that JJ's suitcase? So that means he's living out of that suitcase, because this is another house in Arizona, and that's the place in Idaho. So this young man's not on the priority list, that's for sure.
Yeah, good point. Then we just cast by. We're looking at the shower, the towels just hanging outside of the shower. The question became, did Cox again? He testifies that he gives CPR, but we're going to see some evidence that would suggest, at least in the clothing he's wearing now, that wasn't the same clothing he was wearing. So we wonder if he took a shower, and if so, then hopefully they're grabbing those towels and taking them into evidence, that they're checking the traps in the shower and looking for evidence there. But now we move back into the room, and this is where we caught that really
3-4 shots, something like that.
We cut that really interesting piece of information right there. And why don't you recap what that was that we just heard?
So the paramedics, who've been working on, Charles, do 1, 2, 3, 4, and basically point out that he'd been shot 4 times, and then bedroom, 1, 2, 3, 4 shots right there.
Yeah, amazing.
Paramedic. Mm-hmm.
So then we go back into the room as they're starting to lay down the crime scene tents. And folks, these are just little tents with numbers on, so the crime scene investigators can identify different pieces of key information. And something interesting happens here that Chris is going to comment on.
Yep. You see the officer there, he's in the back, he's going to bend over, and he's covering shell casings. He's got one there, but then listen.
Copy, several gunshot wounds.
There's a couple of shell casings behind it.
Right there. Yeah. The officer says there's a couple of shell casings behind him. So we hear the paramedics say, hey, 1, 2, 3, 4 gunshot wounds. Now we have 2 casings that are thrown over against the window where the officer's standing in the image right now that we're looking at. And if we were looking from the officer's camera, over his right shoulder is the body of Charles with the paramedics working on him. But the officer makes that really unique statement. There are also 2 casings over here next to the body.
Yeah, and great point, Mike. And so why is that going to be significant, right? So if Charles is coming down the hallway, hypothetically, with this bat, okay, and Alex is coming at him, and, you know, there's this tussle, and Alex goes boom, 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 then that puts Alex, those 2 shell casings where this officer is standing right here in this picture, those are going to be the first 2, or those going to be shell casings that are kicked over to the right, okay? Because what they call the ejection port is here on the right. We know that we talked about in the last video, we know that Alex, his strong hand is his right hand, because he's holding that microphone during the comedy show, and there's going to be evidence of that. We're sure of that. However, when this officer says, hey, there's 2 more on the other side of this guy, that causes Mike and I to really stop for a second and think. Mike, what do you think about that?
No, that's exactly right. That was the thing that was so troubling to me, is how, if it is a right-hand ejection, how are those rounds ending up on both sides of the body? And as we watch this video, we can see them working on him, but we see that most likely 2 of those rounds would have had to have come from the shooter originating down the hallway or just outside into the room from the hallway. But 2 of those rounds had to originate from, if we're looking at the body laying on the ground, from above that shoulder point of the body, wouldn't they, Chris?
Yeah, and so what's going to give us that evidence is the autopsy and the trajectory of those rounds. But this is also one other thing, crime fighters, that we want you guys to think about. One of the questions that Mike and I have been going over here is, you know, how many guns are involved in the situation? Remember, we have back when Charles is first contacted for the order to get into his house, that type of problem where, you know, his car was taken at the airport. There's a point in that video where the officer says, are there weapons in the house? Okay. And he says, yes, and a rifle too. So Mike and I are thinking, okay, could that have been the rifle with the silencer on it? Could this be another handgun that we don't know about? And if so, Lori had obviously control potentially over that house. So did she have, you know, control over that handgun, or did Chad have control over that handgun? Okay. We don't know. Is that a handgun that may have been used, you know, to take the lives of the children? We don't know yet. Okay. So, and then we have Alex bringing his own gun. And now we have shell casings on both sides of this particular victim. It could be random, right? Or maybe, you know, we're not going to discount right now. We're going to put it up on the board, you know, bingo card for 100 for Chandler, that, you know, maybe there's a second gun we don't know about yet. We certainly didn't know they were the ones who pulled the pictures out of Yosemite till today. So let's keep our hopes up that things start falling in place.
I think you're right, and it'll be interesting to see the ballistics on the casings, see if they are the same weapon or if they're different weapons, and if 2 of those rounds originated at Vallow's shoulder level or his shoulders, that would indicate possibly someone shooting at him laying on the ground, kind of a finishing off kind of a move. And if so, that big of a caliber at that close a range, I suspect there might be some evidence of the weapon or the bullet passing through the body, and they would recover some evidence from the ground as well, I would think, from the flooring.
Yeah, totally agree, Mike. Totally agree. So let's go outside.
Yeah, this is kind of cool because, again, I think of this trauma nurse that we heard from, and of course you and I have done CPR on people who have had gunshot wounds. You don't get out of a CPR episode without blood on your clothing and on your hands. And so let's take a look at Alex here. This is as they bring him out of the house and they get him secured.
Okay, just have a seat right there.
Let's get FD in here. Have a seat. You have some ID on
So
you,
let's
sir?
get FD in here, meaning let's get the fire guys here.
Yeah, let's get the fire department guys in and get medical going. But now, Chris, this guy's been doing CPR on a body with 4 gunshot wounds to the chest.
Yeah, with his sunglasses on. Yeah, on top of his head. Not
Yeah.
buying it yet. Not buying it yet.
Yeah, and I mean, look at those light blue jeans. There's possibility that there's blood on his shirt. It's a darker shirt, and I'm going to give him credit for that. If he didn't change clothes or if he didn't shower and put the same clothes back on, but leaning up next to someone with your knees against their body while you're doing CPR with massive wounds like that are clearly draining out underneath the body as well. I'm having a hard time buying. I can't even kneel down in my backyard and pull a weed out of the grass without getting mud and stains on my knees. And this guy's got really clean clothes on. That bugs me.
Yeah, and he says, remember Mike, he says, I had time to clean up, and I got hit in the head. I went and I washed up, I cleaned up. Well, is he washing the GSR off of his hands? Is he, is that his clothing at the end of the bed that we see there? There's just a lot of questions that are, I'm sure, being answered, but we just don't have the insight into that yet. But
But what we do have is the behavior. And again, this guy just went through a shooting, just went through being assaulted by a bat. And his voice is calm as a cucumber. There's not elevation in his voice. And folks, as you go back and listen to that, just pay kind of close attention to that and think about yourself whenever you get a little bit of adrenaline pumping in you. And now think enough adrenaline that you would take a life to protect yourself. And then how calm this guy is. That's kind of bothering me a little bit. But then I want you to look at his hands real quick too, Chris.
Yep.
What happened today? How did it get to this?
I don't know. He was enraged.
What's going on? What happened?
He was talking with my sister earlier.
No, what happened today, though? Like, just in the last 20 minutes.
He came at me with a bat.
He came at me with a bat. Let's make sure we remember that. But, I mean, look at these hands. If you'd been performing CPR, I'm just having a hard time with this.
Yeah, I'm not saying it. I'm not seeing it either, Mike. I think, what was the old Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball? Ricky, you have some explaining to do.
Yeah. I was thinking of a different one. I was thinking of something suspicious going on. Yeah, you're right. Thank you for all your support and subscribing. And please, we're almost at 10,000. Help us go over the top. It'd be fun to celebrate that tonight. So until then, have a great day. I hope you enjoy watching the Daybell case. And from me and Chris, again, think about Chris. He's in South Carolina fleeing the hurricanes. So hopefully he's doing well in this hotel and living the high life. And we'll see y'all tonight.